The emotional body and the mental body become refined. And every single emotion, every single thought that occurred in your life is taken one of two directions. Hello, my waking up grateful Gene Keys loves. We are talking today about reincarnation as the Gene Keys sees it, to my understanding. Talking about things like the 7 energy bodies and the Bardo states and what happens with our soul after we die. So before we get into it, first I need you to listen to this in a very specific way. Anytime we're imbibing wisdom as opposed to knowledge, we've got to let go or loosen the reins a little bit. So it's kind of like if you're a reader of poetry, it's kind of like listening in that way. So letting the words kind of wash over you and come into your belly and into your being, and trying not to get locked in or laser focused on any one thing, because these truths are deep. They're deeper than our thoughts can go. They're deeper than our emotions can go. And the only way to actually let them penetrate and permeate into your being so that you can actually feel the truth for yourself is to have this sort of open mind and open space. We can't intellectualize topics like this. So first, let's talk about belief, knowing, and life. I was listening to Richard Rudd, the founder of Gene Keys, the other day, and he threw a quote up from an interview with Carl Jung, who is a psychologist, if you're not familiar, a philosopher, a brilliant, brilliant man who taught us a lot about the unconscious. And he was in an interview, and the interviewer asked him, so this basically shows that you believe in God. Is that true? And Jung replied by saying, I don't believe, I know. And that is a massive difference. The difference between believing something is true, which is intellectual, and knowing something is true in the core of your being, in your belly, is massive. And for us to live our life in a way that is mythic, in a way that allows us to get over our fear and to charge forward into this great unknown, the only way to do that is to know that what we're about to talk about is the truth. Because if you believe in reincarnation, if you believe that it's not one and done, that you're gonna come back and everything, you're gonna have more opportunities to learn and grow, that totally changes the path of your life. Because the other side of the coin, you really only have 2 options. If you only have one life, if you're only here one time, either you're going to do everything that you can to take care of yourself in the now. Everyone else be damned, because I'm only here this one time. There is no afterlife. There is no God. So what the fuck does it matter? Or you can paint the most beautiful life ever, knowing that this is your one shot, which is extremely rare. Whereas if we can get to a place where we believe in reincarnation and we believe in the soul and we believe in evolution, then we're able to trust that things are going to work out and we're going to have more chances, and it's important for us to learn, and that totally changes the flow of life. Okay, so let's get into the 7 bodies. So the Gene Keys breaks down our being into 7 bodies. The first of which is the physical body. So the thing that you can actually touch. As it relates to the Gene Keys, the really important part of the physical body is your DNA. It is the codes that the universe has put into us to allow the unfolding of the Dharma and Karma that we're designed to get on this trip through the earth. The physical body is the densest body. It is how we interact in this thing that we're in. It oftentimes can weigh us down because it tends to hold a lot of the energy from the other bodies until we recognize that we're there. There's nowhere else for it to go. And the only way that God can get us to notice is if it's in our physical body. Then we go into the emotional body. And the emotional body is the next less dense layer, also known as the astral body. And this is emotion, desire, sexuality, duality. This is the deep hunger and drive that's in all of us. Hunger to have sex, hunger to eat, hunger for God, hunger for love. It's this need to have more. It's this feeling of love. It's this feeling of joy. It's this feeling of peace. And on the other side of all of those things, until we recognize that we are that thing and that we're not experiencing it, you get all the opposites as well. You get anger and frustration and sadness. And there's nothing wrong with any of those states, but that is your emotional body. And when you get to the place where you recognize that just like your thoughts, at least this is how it went for me, I recognized that my thoughts were not necessarily mine. Like there was this voice that was chattering in my head that I could choose to engage with or choose to ignore. And that was very freeing for me because I didn't have to associate myself with everything that popped into my brain. It took me a lot longer though, in fact, until fairly recently, to realize that my emotional states are the same exact thing. Those aren't necessarily mine. They aren't mine. They are an energy field that's all around me. And think of your body like a receiving dish and you are picking that thing up. So yes, it's in you and you are feeling it, but it isn't yours. And that just gives us a little bit of separation. It allows us not to go fully down the rabbit hole when we get angry or sad. And it allows you to catch yourself a little bit sooner and recognize that maybe you're playing victim, or maybe this is a pattern that is showing back up from your childhood. Then we get into the mental body. And the mental body is your thinking body. It's what I was talking about, those thoughts that are chattering up in your brain. It's your desire to intellectualize everything, to need to know how things work. The intellectual body is massively influenced by the collective. The way that we think is so structured around language. Language is created at this point by the collective. It's influenced by culture. It's influenced by mom and dad. It's influenced by lots of other people. And that's why I say a lot of the things rolling around in your brain aren't necessarily yours. Those three are what we call the lower bodies. Now the next three, we're getting into the higher bodies. And in order, they're sort of a reflection. So physical is tied to the fourth body, which is causal. Emotional is tied, the second body is tied to the fifth body, which is Buddhic, and so on. And so the causal body is your soul. It's what many traditions would call your soul. It is your higher self. It's your knowing. It's your interface with God. It's your individual slice of God consciousness. And even that is a truth that has to come out of my mouth so that you can understand it intellectually. Because there is no slices when we really get down to it. And at the same time, you are an independent slice right now. And you'll notice when we talk about things up here, things that are wisdom-based, universal truths, there's this constant thing where 2 points are counter to one another and both are true. And I can't think of what the word is for that right now, but you know what I'm saying. The Buddhic body is our higher emotional body. It is the body that ties all of us together and makes us all one. Not intellectually knowing I am you, but in your heart, in your belly, knowing that everything that you do affects the universe. And everything that happens in the universe is reflected in the microcosm of you. And then we get to the Atmic body. And the Atmic body is the divine mind and the divine will. It is Christ consciousness. It is God playing through you. The Atmic body is the land of the avatars and the cities that we talk about in the gene keys. When you have a city playing through you, when you're in that Siddhic state, that is the Atmic body. And if you've never heard the term avatar before, these are souls that have made a choice to stay on Earth and to serve and to help the development of other people's consciousness. A lot of times Christ might be seen as an avatar, or if you've read the book Autobiography of a Yogi, there's a character or person in that book called Babaji, who is an avatar. Then we get into the monadic body. And the monadic body is almost indescribable. It is divine will. It is the merging of the Trinity. It is the Alpha, the Omega, the beginning, the end. It contains everything and nothing, and because of that, it's impossible to put into words. And that's why I need you to listen in that sense that I was saying before. It's listening with your belly. It's hearing this truth and knowing it in your core, because there aren't words. It's ineffable. And what we as Gaia, the people of this planet, the creatures of this planet, are journeying through is a path of reuniting the physical body with the monadic body. And the way that we do that is through a series of reincarnations over time, with each reincarnation getting us closer and closer to reunion with that monadic body. And the way that that happens is after your death, you're going to a place that in the gene keys and borrowed from other traditions is called the Bardo states. And the Bardo states, think of this as not quite the afterlife. We're not going to heaven or hell, but this sort of purgatory maybe is a way to say it. This middle place where everything is going to be sorted out and we're going to see our life, the events of our life, the thoughts in our life, the things that we said in our life, the things that we did. We'll get to see it all. And those bodies begin to separate. And the physical body, of course, stays on the earth and goes back into the water cycle and into being food for the planet so that the cycle can continue. The emotional body and the mental body become refined, and every single emotion, every single thought that occurred in your life is taken one of two directions. Either it is taken into your soul, into your causal body, and that is all the good that you did, all the good things that you thought, and the good emotions that you had, and being of service, that all gets sucked up into your causal body and makes it that much brighter, that much closer to the monadic body. And all the not so good things that you did are purified out of you, out of your causal body, and shoved back into the collective soul. And that's why sometimes we get emotions and thoughts that aren't ours, because it's our job as people here now to continue this process and to continue over time to transmute those things that aren't bringing us closer to reunion with that monadic body. Also, in that moment, it cannot feel like a moment. As you see all of the emotion and all of the thought, it can feel like a lifetime. And that is where the idea of heaven or hell comes from. It can feel like literal infinity. And sometimes those thoughts or emotions can be projected into an actual physical entity, like an angel or a demon. And so you can see so clearly how we end up with the mythology that allows us to get past our mind and to feel it in our belly. And we understand the teachings of things like the Bible. So yes, we atone for our sins, but not in a way of judgment like Christianity typically would have you believe. God is not coming down and judging you and saying that you are a bad person, but instead you see all of the things that you did and you feel all of the things that you did. And you atone for those sins so that you can pull up all the good and release all the not so good into that causal body, so that the next time you come back, your next reincarnation, you're a little bit more clear and a little bit further along the path. One thing I want to touch on here is the idea of karma, or bad karma coming from past lives. I think that's something that we hear often, and if what I just said, if you feel that to be true in your body, it can't be true that we're carrying bad karma forward from lifetime to lifetime. And that is true. You cannot carry those things forward from lifetime to lifetime. However, there is a sense of justice, of universal balance. And that can go past lifetime to lifetime. And so the next life that you have might be a little bit more suffering. But that suffering doesn't mean that you aren't farther along your journey. It means that you can handle more suffering. And a lot of times people at a higher frequency are dealt more suffering because they have a better ability to work through it. Remember, we're transmuting things for the whole. So it's not bad karma, it's growth. It's getting further along the journey. And that's the second time I've said that now, and that language doesn't ring true for me. There is no further along. In this world, there is no time. It's all happening now. Your past is happening now. Your future is happening now. You are already in reunion with that monadic body. And that's why this stuff is so hard to talk about, because there's, again, both things are true. And so over time, our continued evolution leads us through what are called the 9 initiations. And as our soul continues to evolve and continues to grow, and as grace continues to reach down into our lives, we're pulled through 9 different soul phases, if you will. Each one bringing our slice of God closer to reunion with everyone else's. And I will do another video on those.